Congratulations, Beto, on another L. And the big story I want to talk about today is the conservative culture war that's going on. And I know a lot of people, some people love it, some people don't want to hear it. They say, anomaly, we got to just stick together and, get along completely. And to that, I would say it's very pathetic when you look at Cory Booker and he's like, guys, don't argue, don't debate on the debate stage. We all have to just agree, even though we don't agree. It's like, that's so pathetic. It's not, I'm not trying to put a rift in the conservative movement or anything, but we can't be these total, for lack of a better term, never mind. We can't be those type of people that are like, we're not going to agree and we're going to just lie just to get along. This is not true. So I want to talk about the conservative culture war that's going on between Turning Point USA, that kind of mainstream conservative group. We'll talk about it, who else is involved. And then you have Nick Fuentes and the dissident right wing, who is more traditional right or further right, some would say. They have questions about homosexuality. They have questions about immigration. They're a little bit further right than the mainstream right wing. And then there's a lot of us who are in the middle in a sense of it's not that we don't see the value of both, but you start to notice, and we're going to talk about this as well, people really need to understand, you start to see conservative ink in the mainstream conservative organizations, even people like Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro, the Charlie Kirk Turning Point movement, where they stand up for free speech against political correctness. They seem so scared of the dissident right that they're trying to censor, blacklist, ban, get them kicked off Twitter. And it's a really funny sight to see. And we got to talk about this because I told people about a year ago, probably a months ago to a year ago, I told people about this kind of strategy that the left wing uses and the moderate right wing uses, which is they say, in order to stop the people we hate, in order to stop the racists, the xenophobes, the Islamophobes, the anti-Semites, the the supremacists, we're gonna put them in a corner. We're gonna call them deplorables. We're gonna censor them. We're gonna silence them. We're gonna mistreat them. We won't be able to debate them. We have no conversation. That doesn't actually work. So I told the left wing that doesn't work, and they didn't want to hear it. And now you have President Trump for 4, most likely 8 years. And now you have the dissident right wing or the mainstream right wing trying to do that to the further right. And it's very, very, very foolish. And we're going to talk about it. I'm just going to jump right into it. I don't want to waste too many people's time, and I'm going to upload this in full on YouTube. So for those just joining, yes, Beto lost. 20 to 50 people are very upset about that. He's going to probably have a crying press conference, probably go to some kombucha EDM festival or something this weekend. He'll have a good time. Anyway, the main story is conservative culture war. You have a kind of civil war, but not obviously out in the streets or anything. It's like a digital / event civil war between the conservative, the mainstream people, the Charlie Kirks, the Ben Shapiros, the Dave Rubins, these like conservative cornerstones. And then you have the growing dissident right. I don't know if you guys know who they are. Maybe you've never heard of them, but you're going to start to hear about them because they're showing up everywhere. Nicholas Fuentes, who runs an America First channel, and then the further right, they have questions about homosexuality, culture, immigration, all this type of stuff that the moderate right wing doesn't want to talk about. So what spurred this happening is Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA are on a culture war tour where they go to college universities and they're fighting the culture war and the left wing and saying, conservatives belong on college campuses too. We're conservatives. And the last event they had was with Rob Smith, who's the gay black veteran, who will always remind you that he's a gay black veteran. That's kind of his thing. He's on Fox News like, hey, I'm gay, I'm conservative, it's cool. So they had an event and they had a question and answer. And 8 out of 10 of the people, or a large portion of them asking questions, were further right. And they have, in my perspective, I don't agree with everything Charlie Kirk does. I don't agree with everything that Nick Fuentes does. I'm myself. I speak for myself. I make my own videos. I make music. I represent myself. However, I think both sides have value, and there's some very legitimate questions to ask Turning Point USA. As somebody who's conservative and pretty chill, I'm not a big fan of, their brand of conservatism or what they're really doing, although I always say that they have a lot of value. I can't hate on them because they're going around to college campuses, getting people registered, signing up. They're doing great work, and if you don't like it, you got to make your own organization. So I'm not a hater by any means of Turning Point. I'm just not a big fan of the speakers. I'm not, blown away by any means. So these people go, and they're asking questions. I'll give you one, and we'll go into all of them. They asked a question about homosexuality. So you had somebody who was a Christian, further right-wing person than Charlie Kirk, and he asked Charlie and Rob Smith, how does anal sex help us win the culture war? And it was basically him saying, why are you guys promoting homosexuality? And this is, I have to remind the moderate right wing and the left wing, I know this is something no one wants to talk about, but there's a lot of conservatives who don't agree with gay marriage or homosexuality. Me, I have my own thoughts and perspective on everything, but there's people like Jesse Lee Peterson, who's been big in the conservative movement. He's very Christian and he doesn't agree with it. And I want to remind people as well, just to be honest, the Democratic Party didn't agree with this before Obama got into office. This was never a mainstream opinion. The Republican Party has never agreed with promoting homosexuality and gay marriage. This is something that's very, very new in America. It just is. Obama passed it. Conservatives disagreed with it. Bush disagreed with it. Clinton disagreed with it. You go back to, even Jimmy Carter clearly didn't pass, gay marriage and stuff. So this is not something that is well loved by everybody. Me, I can have my perspective, but what I don't understand is the fact that even mainstream conservatives, they constantly promote homosexuality. They say, this is Rob Smith, I have a husband, this and that. My thing is, that's fine if you want to do that, but you can't expect every conservative to agree with that, and you can't expect people to not debate. So they're asking questions about homosexuality, and you got Charlie Kirk and Rob Smith freaking out. They're calling him a homophobe. How dare you? You're terrible. You're horrible. But, to me, I like a little debate. Even if I disagree or I agree, the fact that someone's asking me a question about that is not threatening. So now they're saying these people are homophobic, get them out of the right wing, they're not really conservative. But it's like, okay, so now you're isolating a lot of people. And then they're asking questions about immigration and identity and Israel and, the allegiance of the mainstream TPUSA to, their foreign policy. And like I've said for a year, I don't care how you feel about these things, but I've noticed, and I've told people for months that this was going to build, is that even the right wing will censor people if you don't say the right thing at the certain time. And I started getting that interest. I was like, obviously the left wing censoring. Obviously the left wing doesn't want you to be on college campuses. But if you have a conservative, mainstream brand that says we're fighting political correctness, but you cower to political correctness all the time. We're fighting identity politics, but all you do is use identity politics. This is the Black White House Summit. This is the Hispanic White House Summit. This is the gay Black conservative. I mean, it's hard to say that Turning Point doesn't use identity politics more or less than the left. I mean, they use it exactly the same amount, if not more. I don't know that they're even trying to not do that, which is fine. I'm just saying, don't say you're not. So you have the dissident right who has questions about homosexuality, immigration, allegiance to Israel, or at least, foreign policy. And it's not the fact that I want Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager and Sebastian Gorka, who's trying to get Nick Fuentes kicked off Twitter now. It's not that I want them to agree. They can hold their positions. I'm not trying to budge them an inch. However, in order to beat Nick Fuentes and beat the dissident right and beat these kids who are, very further right with the Christianity and the conservatism, you need to do so by debate, conversation. You need to be able to intelligently debunk what they're saying, or else their movement's going to grow. And Turning Point and Sebastian Gorka, who I've always liked, he's now trying to get Nick Fuentes kicked off of Twitter. You have, they're trying to shut down question and answers. They don't want to, they're calling him homophobic, racist, scum. It reminds me of the liberals calling conservatives that you're a deplorable. It only built the Trump movement bigger because that's not an argument. If I am against illegal or legal immigration in some sort of ways, you calling me racist. If I'm against homosexuality, you calling me homophobic, that's not that you're saying I'm afraid of gay people. You get what I'm saying? If you want to beat these people and win and gain traction, you can't just throw them in a corner, call them racist scum and, alt-right supremacists and call for their... Conservatives calling for the censorship of somebody who doesn't agree with them on a few things, it's a little bit weird, and a lot of people are growing and this movement's growing. They can't run away from it. So this is really my message to both sides, to the mainstream moderate TPUSA, Sebastian Gorka, Ben Shapiro. If you're going to make a living talking about political correctness, free speech, but you don't want to not be politically correct and give free speech to the further right, what do you really stand for? There's a lot of very valid questions that they have. I don't think their questions or debate what they want to say is like really bad, but it's like Charlie Kirk and them melt down when these people ask these questions. Like they don't know what to say. They freak out, they call them names and then try to banish them out of eternity. And it's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get stronger. And you have a lot of people like myself, or even Cassandra Fairbanks, who's a journalist. She leans left sometimes, she leans right. She's not far right by any means. She wants to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. But even her's like, why are you mainstream conservatives trying to censor, kick them off Twitter, silence them, smear them? And I did a whole live stream the other day because it's important. When someone calls somebody alt-right or a white nationalist, when they don't identify as that, that's lobbing up to these big organizations to smear them. Once they can brand you as that, they can kick you off of Twitter, kick you off of Facebook, kick you off of YouTube, kick you off of PayPal. They're now banning people from Chase Bank and Bank of America. You don't want to falsely smear somebody as that. So it's a culture war that's not going away. And I'm not saying this to try to get people to turn against each other. Yes, we need unity, but at the same time, the mainstream conservative wing is going to lose this battle over time, not right now. If they think that everybody who's conservative has to want to watch Rob Smith talk about being a gay veteran all the time, like at college campuses, this is not a mainstream conservative position even 3 years ago. I'm not saying you can't do that and have that, but if your attitude is, we're conservative, you can't oppose immigration, you can't oppose homosexuality, you can't oppose our policy on Israel, you can't oppose our foreign policy, and if you do, you're racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, anti-Semite, it's not going to end well for you because that's not a real discussion. You can have an intellectual discussion about it, and that's kind of, where I'm at with it. I think that Nick Fuentes and a lot of these dissident right people, although I'm not them, they have interesting questions to ask about identity, about demographics, about race, about homosexuality, about things that are too scary for even the mainstream right wing to talk about. And I don't want them, just to really get this out there, I'm not asking for Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro or Dave Rubin to change their opinion. What I'm saying is stop trying to censor, silence, mislabel these people, because then you actually look wrong. If Nick Fuentes says something outrageous and you want to kick him off Twitter, that doesn't make you seem right or intelligent or able to, it makes it look like you're scared of him. And I'm going to be honest, having watched Charlie Kirk, having watched Nick Fuentes, having watched all the people that Turning Point USA books, I'm not really impressed with the people that they book. It seems like they only book people who play a role. I'm the gay black guy. I'm black. I'm the Hispanic guy who wants to build a wall. They're not booking their best. It's like they're booking people who just repeat the same talking points. Western culture, Judeo-Christian values, the unemployment line's lower, liberals, plastic straws. It's like that's their brand of conservative. And to me, it's a little boring. I get it's safe. I get it's trendy. I get it's like, we'll fight the libtards on the college campus. It's for some people. It's not for me personally, but I don't like how they're censoring these other people because in my perspective, even though these people might be extreme, they might be unpopular, they might seem mean, I think a lot of these people can run circles around the mainstream conservatives, not because they're 100% right about everything, but it's because the mainstream right wing just only has like 4 talking points. And if you question, you could be, I looked at someone on Twitter, I'll give you an example. He said, I like Israelis. I think Israelis are based. I like Israel. I like Jewish people. But I think I should be able to question the relationship between Israel and the United States, how much we're giving them, what the foreign policy is about. He actually likes Israelis. But if you bring that energy to Turning Point USA and you ask him a question about foreign policy in Israel, Charlie Kirk has a meltdown. It's like, for me, I don't care about Israel. I love America, but I like Israelis. A lot of them watch. I have no problem with the Jews. Half of my friends, I have a disproportional amount of Jewish friends to the point where the anti-Zionists are like, why do you have so many Jewish friends? I don't know. They're cool. They're better. They're cooler than you. I don't know what you want me to tell you. But however, it's making people dislike Israel more when you ask a question and Charlie Kirk's like, he's like, don't ask that question. You're anti-Semitic. How dare you? It's like, my observation of the Charlies and the Ben Shapiros and the Pragers is that although I think they have a lot of conservative value, I think they're more Israel first than they are America first. And they could probably call me anti-Semitic for that. It has nothing to do. I have liberal Jewish friends. I have Orthodox Jewish friends who are more Jewish than these people who don't like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk either. So it's like, why are you the gatekeeper of Israel and Jews? I have Israeli Jews that don't even like you. So it's like, Who made you the king of Israel? Like Trump says he's the king of Israel. Like they think they're the king of Israel too. So it's like, how come I can't have a perspective that doesn't agree with yours? If you do that, they throw you in a corner. They call you all sorts of names. And the strangest part about it is I'm pro free speech, unless it's like, crazy stuff, death threats, violence, that type of stuff, that should be looked into. Any sort of political perspective on homosexuality, immigration, like these edgy conversations, that's a debate that needs to be had. I'm not going to shut that down. But the mainstream conservatives do shut that down. So I've come to the conclusion they're only pro-free speech unless you talk too much about Israel or Judaism. And then all of a sudden, you can critique Christianity to Charlie Kirk or Shapiro more than you can Judaism. So I've come to the conclusion that they're more pro-Israel, more pro-Jewish than they are pro-America and pro-free speech. And has nothing to do with, anti-Semitism. It's just I follow what they do. I follow what you're allowed to talk about with them. And they don't let you question homosexuality. They don't let you question Israel. They don't let you question Judeo-Christian values. They don't let you question legal immigration. I support legal immigration. However, I want to hear Nick Fuentes and these kids. I want to hear why they don't support certain angles of legal immigration. I'm not offended by it. My family was legal immigrants. To be honest, I even know illegal immigrants. However, that doesn't offend me. I'm not going to be like, oh, you guys are racist, sexist. Why do you have a policy? In Canada, Maxime Bernier, or whatever his name is, he wanted to, not have so many legal immigrants as well. And his thing was like, we have 3 times the legal immigrants of America. At a certain point, it makes sense to slow it down. I don't think that's racist or xenophobic. It's like certain people might not want Americans to come there at a time. And I'm not going to make fun of their country. Let's hear why you think that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the mainstream conservatives, it's very telling that Sebastian Gorka wants to kick Nick Fuentes off of Twitter. They're all calling him alt-right, white supremacist, anti-Semite, horrible person. And you could think all these things, but from my point of view, I've listened to Nick Fuentes talk. I've listened to Charlie Kirk talk. I've listened to all them talk. And Charlie Kirk has a blind spot when it comes to free speech and America and debate when it comes to Israel. So it's like you're pro-politically, anti-political correctness, but all you do is play political correctness. You even banned Ben Garrison from a White House event. And this is what I want to explain to people too. I've said it a few times, but really listen to what I'm saying. This will backfire on you. Doesn't matter how much you think you love Jews in Israel. You could be an Israeli Jew in America. This is still going to backfire against you because that's what happens when you give up an inch with free speech or the Second Amendment. Ben Garrison is a cartoonist who does all sorts of cartoons. You've probably seen him on Twitter, GRR Graphics. He does amazing pro-Trump cartoons. He was pressuring the New York Times saying their cartoons are anti-Semitic. You have a conservative, and I called it out. No one wants to listen to me because the conservative movement has a massive blind spot there. I said, guys, you can't call this cartoon anti-Semitic. It was a picture of Trump like on a leash with Netanyahu. You might not like it. You might feel like it hurts your feelings. But in America, we don't let Muslims shut down cartoons. We don't let Christians shut down cartoons. We don't let Jews shut down cartoons. We don't let the left shut down cartoons. So why in the world would New York Times, as much as despicable and horrible as I think they are, now the conservative movement, a conservative free speech cartoonist is going to call New York Times anti-Semitic? So they got so much pressure from the right wing that they retracted a cartoon. So now you have right-wing Christian and Jewish and Muslim, all the conservatives, whoever they are, they're pressuring a liberal outlet because they made a cartoon. And then they go on college campuses and talk about how Islam wants to shut down cartoons. Islam in big groups do want to shut down cartoons, but so do you. Now you're a hypocrite. Fast forward 2 months, Ben Garrison, who is not an anti-Semite, he shills so hard. He says, don't do that. He's attacking other cartoons for anti-Semitism. He gets disinvited from a conservative White House event because they deemed that his cartoon was anti-Semitic. Why did they think his cartoon was anti-Semitic? Because it involved George Soros and the Rothschilds. So that's what I call instant karma. When you're a phony, right-wing, fake free speech, fake Americana conservative, and I love Ben Garrison, don't get me wrong, but when you don't stand for anything, now you lose. So you didn't stand up for another cartoonist because you disagreed with him, because you disagreed with his political and religious views. Now you get popped. And everyone said, Ben Garrison's not anti-Semitic. Of course he's not. But Neither is the New York Times. I mean, look at the amount of Jewish influence in the New York Times. They're the furthest thing from anti-Semitic. I would even say, look into their leadership and who writes their articles. They're constantly, they employ quite a few Jewish people. So they're not anti-Semitic. They just don't like Trump and Netanyahu, but you called them anti-Semitic. Now they're calling you anti-Semitic. Now they call Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is actually part Jewish, interesting, she calls Donald Trump anti-Semitic because Donald Trump's, making fun of Adam Schiff, and Adam Schiff happens to be a Jewish man. Is Trump anti-Semitic? Of course not. Someone said I've lost a step. I'm pro-free speech, big boy. Turning Point is not. I'm sorry. They will turn on you in a second. Ben Garrison calls someone else anti-Semitic, and then he doesn't get invited for anti-Semitism. I mean, Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro get called alt-right all the time, and they get called far-right, and they get deplatformed and pressured. So now, all I ask for is give that same energy to other people. Another example, maybe you can handle this because it doesn't involve conservatives, doesn't hurt your feelings, but facts don't care about them. Tulsi Gabbard gets pressured as a Russian agent. We all stood up for Tulsi Gabbard. We said she's not a Russian agent. And then Tulsi Gabbard goes and votes against Trump on the impeachment inquiry. So Tulsi Gabbard is going to have to reap what she sows. We know she's not Russian. We know she's not a Assad agent. But when she votes against Trump and throws Trump under the bus for the impeachment inquiry, how am I going to feel bad for Tulsi Gabbard when she gets falsely labeled, when she gets impeached, when she gets pressured, when she gets lied about, when she gets attacked by phony Congress? I don't feel bad for Tulsi Gabbard anymore because she voted against Trump on the impeachment. It's the same thing with Ben Garrison. I don't feel bad for you for getting blackballed and blacklisted because you did the same thing to another cartoonist. And it's the same thing with Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro. If you guys can't have a debate, if you can't have a discussion, if you guys want to censor and blacklist the further right wing because you can't intellectually hang with them, I don't feel bad for you anymore. And I'll tell you what, if Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes debated, I'm not Nick Fuentes. I don't agree with everything he says. We have very different views. But I think that Nick Fuentes could run circles around Charlie Kirk because they don't really say much, guys. I'm sorry. They say the economy's high, this is great. But when it comes to the tough questions, that it's like when a left-wing person debates a right-wing person, the right-wing person, most of the time, not always, they make them look silly because they're afraid to say anything. They can't even say, they're like, everything's racist, everything's sexist, everything's, that's not a real debate. Just putting a label on everything and shutting down the conversation. So when you have the right wing to the further right, it's not that I think the further right's right about everything, but they have some valid points that no one wants to bring up. I'll give you an example. For me, I don't care what sexuality you are. I have a lot of gay friends. I have a lot of lesbian friends. Personally, I love lesbians. I can't help it. I think, it's awesome. No, but anyway, jokes aside, I'm not anti-homosexuality. However, I think it should be questioned. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the disease rate or the fact that if you're a man, putting your genitals in another man's asshole, sorry for the language, there's probably a higher chance of disease. Even if you're a man doing it to a woman, it's not a vagina, it's skin-to-skin contact, it's, dirtier in some ways. So I think homosexuality and anal sex should be questioned. So if somebody asks me at my event, how does anal sex help the culture war? I'm not going to call them a homophobe. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're so defensive. They're so afraid of that conversation. So they say, everybody who thinks that's a homophobic, you can't even talk to me. But to me, is that really the truth? Some people, have a valid conversation to be had. And when it comes to the LGBT movement in America, as somebody who supported, the gay marriage at the time, you give them an inch, they've taken 20 miles. Now they're pro-pedophilia. Now they're pro, all this creepy stuff. They want to indoctrinate the kids with like gay sex courses when they're 5 years old. I don't even want them to have straight sex courses. They're showing their balls at children's study groups. It's getting pretty disgusting. And then you hit back and they say, no, what are you, a homophobe? So in 10 years, it went from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party didn't support homosexuality to the Democratic Party is basically pro anything goes, even if it's like children's sexuality, castrating young kids, changing their gender when they're 4 years old. It's disgusting. But now on the right wing, it's not only that they're accepting homosexuality. I personally don't have a problem with that. However, the Charlie Kirks and all these people are trying to say, we're going to parade around college campuses promoting homosexuality. We're going to put Rob Smith on the stage, which is fine. Rob Smith seems like a great guy. I'm sure he has a lot of value. My friend Brandon Straka and Scott Presler are crushing it. Scott Presler goes around and cleans stuff up. It's awesome. Brandon Straka, a lot of people don't even know he's gay because he doesn't make it the cornerstone of what he did. When he did the walk away movement, I don't even think he mentioned he was gay. It's like he blew up and then told you, I respect that because it's not like his whole thing. He has more value than his sexuality. But a lot of this turning point stuff, it's like, I'm gay, I'm the gay conservative, I'm the gay conservative. It's a little weird. It's like, okay, that's cool. But then the craziest part is if you disagree with them, they then call you a homophobe. So it's not just that they're promoting homosexuality, which some conservatives have a problem with, some conservatives don't, some liberals don't. I'm not saying how to feel, but their stance is now, we're going to promote on the right wing homosexuality as if it's awesome. And if you have a question about anal sex, we're going to call you a homophobe. You get what I'm saying? It's not that they're supporting it. It's the fact that they're promoting it and putting up a wall like the left wing. If you push back at all against our turning point homosexual agenda, we're going to label you a homophobe. It's very dangerous. I know somebody here said I lost a step. I haven't lost a step. I'm the realest. I'm not saying I'm the realest one, but these other people, trust me, people at these organizations, they know what I'm saying. They're all afraid to say it because these people book them and employ them. I don't cower to anybody. They've never booked me, even though I helped Candace Owens blow up. I got her 27 million views when she had under 100,000. I've never been booked by Turning Point, so they've never done anything for me. I don't care. If I had to go to the college campus tours and I'm like, they know what I'm saying is true. Everybody's just afraid to say it because they don't want to lose their job. And all I'm saying is, doesn't that sound familiar? How many people do we complain about that work at liberal companies and they don't want to say they're conservative on a college campus or at a liberal company because they're afraid of losing their job? Now you have conservatives afraid to lose their job within conservative organizations, whether it be Daily Wire, PragerU, Blaze TV, Turning Point USA, all the big ones, the White House organization. They're afraid to have a debate. They're firing people at Turning Point for taking a picture with somebody at a debate. So now conservative, you can't question even anal sex, so they'll call you a homophobe. You can't question Israel, or else they'll call you anti-Semitic. You can't attend a debate? Are you kidding me? You can't even attend a debate? You can't. Michael Knowles has to condemn. I took a picture with Nick Fuentes. That's why I called him a pussy. I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse, but he's a pussy. I mean, you're a conservative against political correctness, and you're going to condemn a photograph? This is conservative now? I'll pass. I guess I'm more conservative than them, and I don't even consider I'm more libertarian. I'm more honest. It's like, you can't fight political correctness and condemn a photograph. You're allowed to take a photograph with Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump. You're allowed to have a debate with Louis Farrakhan, Pastor Anderson, Rabbi Shmuley, whoever. You don't have to say sorry for conversing with someone. You shouldn't have to say sorry for taking a picture for someone, and you certainly shouldn't have to be sorry for having a debate with someone, and you shouldn't be sorry to agree with somebody, because whether it's Charlie Kirk or Nick Fuentes, I don't disagree with everything that they both say, and I don't agree with everything that they both say, and I don't have to explain myself. It's like the most successful people in de-radicalizing horrible people in the world did so with kindness, compassion, debate. If you've never seen Alex Jones, a ardent libertarian Christian, had a debate with Louis Farrakhan, who's a ardent Muslim Nation of Islam. They're very different. Alex Jones is very pro-Israel. Louis Farrakhan is most likely very anti-Israel. He's very critical of Judaism. Alex Jones is not at all. Alex Jones loves Jews and loves Israel. But they sat down, a Muslim and a Christian, and had a beautiful debate. And they connected on things they agreed with. The central banks, media, certain things that it was a beautiful debate. It's probably banned on YouTube now because they don't want you to see that. They don't even respect you enough to think that you could handle a conversation between a Muslim and a Christian. I don't like when the left does that, so why would I like when the right wing does that? You get what I'm saying? Nick Fuentes should not be banned off Twitter. If you disagree with what he says, you should be able to intellectually debate it. But I have a rude awakening for a lot of these mainstream conservatives who just play along with that. There's a conversation that none of these people want to have that needs to be had. Like I always explain, when it comes to, say Shapiro's brand of foreign policy, a lot of people love Ben Shapiro because he's very good on conservative values here. He's anti-abortion. Ben Shapiro has a lot of value. He's intelligent. He runs a great organization. So a lot of people watch Ben Shapiro and they trust him. And then he talks about Israel and Syria, and he talks about foreign policy quite often, and he's convinced a lot of Christians to want to regime change Syria. That's a Ben Shapiro policy. He's like, he's got articles written about it. I want to overturn the Syrian army. He wanted to fight the Syrian army, the Syrian leader, but Ben Shapiro never explained that Syria had 2 to 2.5 million Christians, more than anywhere in the Middle East. He just kind of twisted the argument to try to convince conservatives and Christians that killing the leader or overthrowing the government of Syria would be a great thing for Judeo-Christian values. And here's the truth. It was not good for Christians in the Middle East, but he doesn't explain that. The point I'm getting to is, if I say that, or I say something about Ben Shapiro, these right-wingers swarm you and they call you an anti-Semite. They say that you're horrible and terrible. So it's like these games that they play, they're like, get your trust and then run you in a different direction. And I'm not saying there's not a debate to be had, but the reason I'm making this video is because I warned people a year ago. I actually had a conversation with my buddy Andrew Meyer, who's an Orthodox Jew, who's more Jewish than a lot of these people. Half of them are Christian, Zionists, they're not even Jewish. And I had a conversation explaining this. I said, when you censor and silence people and don't allow them to even ask questions and call them names, you're going to grow anti-Semitism, you're going to grow disdain for Israel, you're going to grow disdain for what you're trying to promote. And they act like they're fighting anti-Semitism so hard. But you look now, I said this like 6 months ago, now all the turning point events, they're getting bombarded with right-wing people who don't agree with them, who have questions about homosexuality, immigration, American culture, white identity or identity politics, where a lot of them feel, Charlie Kirk says, there's a big, there's one on a video on Twitter, you could try to find it. He explains he doesn't care about America really, in a weird way. He says, it's not about America, it's not about the Rocky Mountains, you know what I'm saying? It's not about the American people. You could watch the thing, but he's like, it's about an idea. And he said, whether it's here, Israel, anywhere, it's the idea that matters. What? I understand that America is great because of the Constitution, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, but their brand of conservatism is basically, we don't care about America. We don't care about the Rocky Mountains. We don't care about the American people. We could take this idea to Israel or to the Middle East and it would work just as good. And, it's not about that's not how a lot of people feel on the right wing or the left wing. It's like, I like the Rocky Mountains. I like the American landscape. I love this country. I love the people of this country. So I don't agree with Charlie Kirk there. I think it's more than an idea. And I think there's a demographic conversation that can be had. And that's what the further right wants to talk about. And, I think that's okay. It doesn't have to be my personal beliefs. I'm of mixed ethnicity. I'm 4 or 5 different ethnicities in one. Nick Fuentes doesn't bother me when he talks about ethnicity. Even when he has an extreme view, it doesn't bother me. There's a lot of, I know people that are 100% black or 50% black, both, who love Nick Fuentes. You know what I'm saying? It's like he can say stuff about race, and certain people it doesn't bother. I have Jewish friends who listen to extreme, what some people would call anti-Semitic content, and they personally enjoy it. They think it's either funny or interesting, but sometimes it bothers them, but they're not babies. They can hear it, they can hear a perspective. So these people who act like they're the leader of all people is a red flag to begin with. Like, I protect Jews, I protect Israel, but then you listen to their brand of America first, and I'm like, you don't even care about the Rocky Mountain? You don't care about the American landscape or the American people? You're more concerned, that tells me, you'll throw us under the bus in a second. That doesn't sound good. It's like if I was the mayor of California and I'm like, guys, it's not about the California landscape. It's not about the Pacific Ocean. It's not about Santa Monica. It's not about you guys. It's about the idea of California. We could take this over to another country. It's like, what? That's a major red flag. And you can disagree with me, but the point I'm saying is these mainstream conservatives, and I want people to listen. If you think I'm tripping, you could find out the hard way in 7 months, like Turning Point found out today. I have friends who work at Turning Point, and I've told them this 6 months ago. I told them, guys, there's a further right, there's a more dissident paleo-conservative or nationalist conservative, whatever. I don't know what they want to call themselves, but it's growing, it's building, and it's building because they're not allowed to have a conversation. They get banned, they get censored, they get silenced, and in a weird way, I listen to both, and I'm like, I hear some of the points they're making. I disagree with some. To be honest, I could challenge them and be like, I don't agree with that. But I'm not going to silence them. And in a weird way, they have some things that make sense. It's like when they would bring their debate to the turning point thing, it's not like they even they're like, no, that's racist, that's homophobic, you can't come here. It's like, that doesn't make your idea look right. And it is like no matter whether you're a conservative who loves Israel or a conservative that loves Israelis, but you're a little skeptical of the foreign policy, you're allowed to be skeptical of Obama or Clinton or Trump. So they're like the untouchable, like Charlie Kirk is like, you have free speech unless you go there, then you're an anti-Semite. And then it's weird. You know what I'm saying? It's like someone asked him a question that had nothing to do with Israel. He asked about demographics. He asked about censorship. He literally said, Charlie, if you're so pro free speech, why did you kick out, or why did you remove Ashley St. Clair, who happens to be a Jewish woman? Remove her because she took a picture with Nick Fuentes. Now you're blacklisting your own people because they took a picture. And Charlie's like, listen, I love Israel. I'm not going to deny it. The dude didn't even ask you about Israel. It's like they're so obsessed. They're like foaming at the mouth. I have Jewish friends who think that they're not helping them. They're like, dude, they're hurting our cause. Some people love it, but it's like, no one asked you about Israel. We're just it's like, you love America, but you love free speech. You love another country so much that you're going to throw out free speech, conservatism, Christianity, like all the bedrocks of conservatives out the window for your blind allegiance, and then you want to say it's somehow a terrible thing to question that. It's a little weird. It's a little weird to me. It's like if I'm 100% Italian and I'm always talking about Italy so much that I don't even care about American free speech, and then you ask, you're like, yo, do you have allegiance to Italy? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? That's anti-Italian for you to even question that. It's like, what? So I think that's the conversation that's not going away on the right wing, and I've warned people at these big things, you don't have to agree with it. That's the game that they've tried to play. They've tried to play the safe conservative, identity politics. We're gay, we're black, we're Hispanic, we want to build the wall, we love all legal immigration, we need as much as possible, homosexuality is awesome, we're promoting on college campuses, and if you disagree with us, you're racist, sexist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic. It's not a long strategy. It's not qualming the criticisms of Judaism and Israel. It's not qualming the criticisms of immigration. It's not qualming the identity conversation. It's only growing it, because if even me, you know how not extreme I am. You know how calm I am. You know how chill I am. You know how loving I am. I got fans in Israel. I got fans in Palestine. I have fans in Ireland. You know what I'm saying? I have Jewish, Christian, Muslim. I have liberal fans. I have socialist fans. Because I'm so chill, even though I don't agree with people, I'm not hateful. But I personally, truly believe that Nick Fuentes would run circles around these conservatives, and it's not because he's 100% right about everything. It's because they're not really bringing their best. As Trump would say, they're not sending their best. It's like there's really intelligent conservatives out there. I'll give you an example. Paul Joseph Watson, who used to work for InfoWars, but he's a smart guy if you know Paul, banned from Facebook, I think. He broke down what I'm saying right now, and he had a very intelligent breakdown of it. Paul doesn't feel the way that Nick feels. Paul doesn't, he's his own person. He's not that far, but he understands what's happening. You get what I'm saying? It's like you don't have to agree with Nick, but if you're just going to hire people because they're gay or black or Hispanic, and then you're just going to get crushed at these question and answers, you're not going to be able to hide it. It's like you got to hire smarter people. You got to hire more, diversity of thought. It's not like everybody you hire, it's like we're going to go up there, we're going to say I'm gay, we're going to say I'm black, we're going to say I'm Hispanic, we're going to talk about the GDP, we're going to talk about unemployment, we're going to call liberals libtards, Western values, and it's like, it's not going to work. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of intelligence on both sides. It's not going to work. You can not believe me, you could think I'm mean or tripping, but it's like, you got to get, it's not a long-term strategy. It's so bad that they're considering shutting down their own question and answers. So it's like, I'm conservative, I'm ready for anything, but are you? It's like, to me, they're only ready for the left wing. It's easy to go, it's like 30-year-old men, 25-year-old men going to college campuses to debate 18-year-olds, and that's what they brag about. They're like, dude, I'm so conservative. It's easy to beat a 19-year-old liberal when you're in your 30s. Like, that's not that impressive. debate Nick Fuentes. You know what I'm saying? Debate somebody that's right-wing that you don't agree with. Debate Farrakhan. Have Ben Shapiro debate Alex Jones. You know what I'm saying? Bring on Roseanne Barr and have her debate with a top conservative. You get what you're not really impressing me personally by only debating leftists and then banning the further right wing out of existence. And these people are getting banned from PayPal. They're getting banned from a lot of places, and they have some valid questions about it. You know, I'm not for any sort of extreme racist, horrible person who hates and destroys all people, but you start to really notice the double standards where a lot of these organizations, I'll give you a hint, who are trying to deplatform people like Nick Fuentes and others, is Jewish organizations, the Anti-Defamation League, the Zionist Organization of America. They're pressuring Twitter now to get rid of Nick Fuentes, and that's their whole brand, Zionist Organization of America. I've actually hosted a debate with somebody who works for the Zionist Organization of America and somebody who's critical of Zionism. That's like my role. You know, I brought Adam Green, who's very critical of Zionism, to debate somebody who works for a Zionist organization. Am I going to get blacklisted now because I'm hosting debates and having conversations? You know, I'm not even knocking that organization. But they're trying to kick Nick Fuentes off of Twitter. And the hypocrisy of that is, besides the fact that it's people trying to deplatform and ban and censor others, is the Zionist Organization of America and the ADL in many ways are Jewish supremacist organizations. In a sense, I'm not saying that they can't do that, but their whole brand is, we're fighting white nationalism, we're fighting white identity, but their whole brand is Jewish identity. I mean, the ADL is a Jewish organization founded to undermine the First Amendment, basically, in the early 1900s. It's not like me saying, oh, they have so much Jewish leadership. That's what they are. Look them up on Wikipedia. They're an international Jewish organization who is now rigging Google, pressuring conservatives, trying to destroy free speech in America for Israel and Judaism. It's not my opinion that they do that. There's videos of them saying that's their goal. That's what they want to do, is stifle any sort of hate that your way. So this is why the dissident right's growing as well. You have big Jewish organizations and people like Turning Point and PragerU and Ben Shapiro who claim to be America first, but they'll shut down free speech when it comes to Israel Judaism, telling white kids that they're not allowed to have an identity, and if they do what they're doing, that they're supremacists. Me, I'm not an identitarian. I'm mixed myself. I look for the best in people. I'm not afraid of demographic debates, but that's not my vibe. That's not who I am. I'm thinking like long term. I'm very spiritual and like not like phony spiritual, but I believe in mindset. I don't like to let certain things into my mind because I'm not concerned about it. You know what I'm saying? That's not my role. I'm not a politician. However, I get why the dissident right's growing, because you're telling white kids and conservatives that they're not allowed to do, and you're banning their PayPal for trying to do what you're actually doing. So if you're against supremacism, you should be against black supremacism, because minority maybe in America, but worldwide, white is a minority. Worldwide, Christian is the most persecuted religion. So it's like, why in Christian and white-based countries is, anti-white, anti-Christian sort of racism, that's acceptable. But if you look in the world, I mean, Christians are getting slaughtered. There's countries where it's white is getting slaughtered. So I don't understand the dynamic and how the conservatives are cool with that, where if you're against white supremacism, I agree. But then are you against black supremacy? Of course not. They're allowed. Are you against Jewish supremacism? They're not, And in a weird way, they say the fake liberal definition of racism, you could be racist against Jews, you could be racist against Christians, you could be racist against white, black, Italian. Racism goes all ways, but they've manipulated the definition to say racism is only if you're a group that comes with systemic power and is racist against another group. So with that, even the liberal fake definition of racism, are Jewish people not allowed to be racist against whites? Because if you look at big organizations, if you look at media, if you look at banking, if you look at culturally, if you look at politically, if you look at the owners of NBA and NFL teams, it's not a diss, it's actually a compliment. I think Jews are intelligent. I think they're smart. I think they have, an in-group strategy where they, work together. I think that they have good parenting skills. And I think that their mindset is what launches them to success. I have nothing but praise for Jewish people. But if Jewish people have more power in America than a lot of white organizations, and they're constantly, trying to blacklist and ban white people for doing exactly what they're doing, is that not racism, even by the liberal standards? Somebody who has systemic power, smashing down against a racial group who has less power than them? It's debatable which group has more power, but they're like, oh, white people have all power, and that's why they can't be you can't be racist against them. Well, what about Jewish when it comes to film industry, when it comes to media, when it comes to censorship organizations, the ADL, the ZOA? So they're not, the double standards are a little bit weird, So that's why the dissident right's growing. It's no surprise when you see all that happening. Of course they're going to be angry. Of course, I'm not angry because I'm not an angry person. I'm not going to let a person ruin my life or put me in a corner. And when I have conversations with the dissident right, the further right than Charlie Kirk, I actually get through to them because I'm not a liar and I'm not a censorer and I'm not a phony. So I'll have a conversation with them and they'll be like, Anomaly, where do you stand? You know what I'm saying? You seem very censored. But I don't lie to them and I don't censor them. And when I talk to them, I feel their pain. I feel their displacement. I feel some things they're saying are valid. Other things, I think they're getting onto the wrong stuff. But when I don't lie to them, they'll consider what I'm saying. So if I disagree with them, it's a lot different than me pushing them in a corner saying you're not allowed to feel that way. I'll give them some things. I'll be like, you're right about that. You're right about that. But I don't agree with that. Like, I'll give you an example. A lot of people, this is a conversation a lot of people probably won't even have or don't even think about, but that's what makes me unique and valuable. If I just sat here and told you the same 5 things that other conservatives say, what's the point about me? You could interchange me. That's what makes me unique. But when I talk to these people, I'm trying to think what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. But hold on. Sorry, guys. Someone said, what's on my head? Oh, it's just like it was my bootleg Halloween costume. Oh, I remember what it was. All right, so a lot of people in this dissident far right who are very critical of Israel, they are so critical of Israel, they think the United Nations is like a trustworthy source. You get what I'm saying? So they're like, dude, like I've seen them say they love the United Nations. And I was like, just because you're skeptical and criticism of Israel doesn't mean you should believe the United Nations. Like, the United Nations is trash. No offense. They're not to be trusted. They lie constantly. They're absolutely trying to power grab over America and its allies. And says, I don't trust the United Nations at all. But those are kind of the games that people play. They're like, but here's the thing. When I talk to the dissident right about that, they consider what I'm saying. They've never even heard that because they're so used to being blacklisted and banned and censored, they cling on to anybody who agrees with them. So it's like if they get something from the UN that's critical of Israel, they just think, oh, the UN is on my team. It's like, no, you get what I'm saying? There's a lot of nuance to stuff, but when you throw people in a corner, they grow. So it's like the strategy, just to repeat for people who don't follow or they think I'm tripping when I'm totally fine, and honestly, this is probably 20 times as honest as anything you'll ever hear at one of their events, is, the big problem on the mainstream, right, is they're adopting things like promoting homosexuality, promoting in a lot of ways political correctness and identity politics constantly, and a lot of people on the right wing don't agree with it. And the great thing about being a real conservative is you could agree to disagree, but you're not going to censor, silence, and shut people down. But the mainstream right wing, including, I've even seen Dave Rubin hint at it. His whole brand is based on having conversations. But if you touch too close to home with Dave Rubin or Charlie Kirk or Shapiro, all of a sudden they're trying to label you a name and get you blacklisted or kicked off or silenced completely. And it's not going to work. I don't know what people want me to, if you want me to lie to you and tell you that it's a great strategy and it's going to stop anti-Semitism and it's going to stop the dissident right from growing, I could lie to you and say, no, that's a great idea. Keep censoring, keep silencing, keep blacklisting, keep running in circles, keep promoting identity politics, keep moving further left and talking down to the further right, keep calling them, scum and deplorable. And yeah, it's going to be, I could lie or I could tell you the truth and say that's a horrible strategy. And it's not saying that you have to agree with them, but there's a conversation to be had. And those conversations don't bother me. Another example of this is Crick or Watson from Watson and Crick. If you guys know Watson and Crick from science class, they discovered the double helix DNA strand. they're one of the most accomplished scientists, human scientists on planet Earth. I mean, that was one of the biggest discoveries in recent scientific history, was Watson and Crick discovering DNA. He came out and said, he started studying demographics, and he said, I think Hispanics have more sex because they're closer to the equator and closer to the sun. I think Africa will never prosper because of, their mindset, or I don't know exactly what he said. That was his scientific perspective. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. You could call it racist, you could call it terrible, but I didn't discover the double helix. You know what I'm saying? Who am I to tell this scientist that's probably way smarter than me how mean it hurts my feelings? If he said white or Hispanic will never be as smart as Asian, I'm not going to cry about it. You get what I'm saying? It's like, it doesn't hurt my oh, anomaly, you're part Puerto Rican. I think Puerto Ricans have low IQs. I don't care what you think. I understand myself as an individual. Point I'm getting to is this dude, they ruined his life for doing a scientific experiment. So whether it's left wing or right wing, you're not allowed to talk about race. You're not allowed to talk about certain religions. You're not allowed to talk about sexual preference. It's like, what's the point? It's like, I don't want to lose free speech on the left. I don't want to lose free speech on the right. And when you smear somebody, it doesn't disprove them. There's a way to disprove that and say, I did a new research and I found that this happened. But I don't understand why the moderate right wing thinks that that's a good idea, because it's starting a culture war. And I'll just give you a hint, guys. You might be more outnumbered than you think you are, especially among young people. I have a good grip on the culture. Unfortunately, they don't book me for their culture war events because I'm actually somebody who could get through to liberals. I'm a hip-hop artist. I should be getting booked left and right on college campuses, but they don't want to touch me because I'm more honest, I'm more accurate, and I'm not a puppet. They want little conservatives to just be like, if I had no value whatsoever besides saying, I'm Hispanic, build a wall, I love the GDP, I would be a way bigger star on the mainstream right wing, because that's what they want. They want the black gay conservative. They want the black, I'm done being on the Democratic plantation. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just having a real conversation. I find it a little bit slighted when you're intelligent, they throw you in a corner. When you just repeat their 5 talking points, you're the number one star out of nowhere. And I'm not trying to be mean or hateful. That's just the truth. I put in more than enough work. I helped Candace Owens blow up. I helped Brandon Straka blow up. I have 350 million views. I'm a hip-hop artist with songs with platinum groups. Meanwhile, they're booking music artists that nobody cares about, people who have no intelligent value besides repeating their talking points, and then they want to throw people in a corner who have conversations with them. Then that's not my brand of conservatism, and you're going to get ratioed. Sebastian Gorka wants to ban Nick Fuentes off Twitter. Now he's getting ratioed. People are calling into his radio show. There's more dissident right than people want to admit because it's not politically correct to admit. So when Charlie Kirk does an event now, 8 out of 10 of the questions are asking questions about the things he doesn't want to answer questions. And he thinks he's going to run away. He thinks he's going to shut down the question. It's going to grow, bro. You got to face it, And I get why. It's an optics thing. You don't want to, like Charlie Kirk is very moderate right-wing. They call him alt-right. They already call him neo-Nazi. They call him all these things. They call him anti-Semitic. When Charlie Kirk is the most pro-Israel person I've ever met, I get why he wants to distance himself. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I think he's doing an excellent work as far as, getting conservatives together on college campuses. I can't knock it because no one else is doing it. I've given Ben Shapiro and Turning Point so many props. However, I get that that's the safe decision to make, but what does safe really get you in this world? You look at how nice Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens have been, but they get called alt-right, white supremacist, racist, even though they're the furthest thing from it. So you shouldn't call other people that when because it's going to come back around, and it already does. It's like everyone's trying to play safe. It's not going to work. You're still going to get thrown under the bus. If they could deplatform Alex Jones, they could deplatform Nick Fuentes, they can deplatform you. And you could cry all you want and say, oh, I'm not anti-Semitic. No, I'm not racist. I've never been Islamophobic. I've never been xenophobic. They don't care. That's the amazing thing about free speech is, what is hate? You can't have a hate speech law because some people hate the truth. Some people hate reality. Some people hate, edgy conversations. Some people hate comedy. So you can't pass a hate speech law. What is racist? To some people, racism is hating everybody from a particular group. To some people, racist is having an opinion that's unpopular. In some cases, people think the truth is racist. It's like some people think Dave Chappelle's racist. Some people think Donald Trump's racist. Some people think, Nancy Pelosi's racist because she's a white woman, even though she's liberal. So you can't pass racism laws, and you can't use that term because what does it even mean anymore? To me, racism means viciously hating every single person of that race. Racism is not noticing trends in certain race, but now even the mainstream right wants to say that, oh, that's racist. Is it? Like if I notice that the NBA is mostly one race, is that racist? Because I noticed that Jeremy Lin and Yao Ming are some of the only Asian players to ever make the NBA. Is that racism or is that reality? You get what I'm saying? Oh no. If you take that and you're like, oh, there's a lot of these people in media. They'll say, oh my God, that's racist. I'm not even mad at it. It's a compliment. You're doing tremendously. You know what I'm saying? If I notice that a lot of Pakistanis are thriving in tech, that's not racism, but some people would say that. So you can't broadly call people racist and call for the censorship of another conservative for being racist, because that's absolutely going to turn against you. Whether it's racism, hate, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, even anti-Christianity. Like, I don't want to censor people. I want to be able to have the same level playing field as them. And I don't have that. And that's what's really bothering the dissident right as well. If you look at a lot of these anti-white, anti-Christian narratives, including the movie about killing Trump supporters that they wrote, what was it called? The Hunt? About hunting down and killing Trump supporters. Look at who wrote that script. It's mostly Jewish guys. So if Jewish people who have way more systemic power in media and entertainment industry, if they're allowed to make an anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-conservative murder movie, but you're not allowed to even have a conversation about their race and religion, do you think that's going to make the dissident right disappear, or do you think it's going to make it stronger? It's going to make it stronger because people are tired of the double standards. It's not that you have to agree with white hate against Jewish or white supremacy, but if you're doing what you're accusing others of doing, you're going to make people hate you. It's like the Democrats. Like, Donald Trump worked with Russia. You sold 20% of the uranium to Russia in a quid pro quo. Joe Biden's on camera with a quid pro quo. They're all saying they want to do a quid pro quo with Israel. They're like, we're going to try to get them to do this. And that's a quid pro quo. So it's like no one's going to like you. If you accuse Trump of doing what you're doing, it's the same with Judaism or mainstream conservatism. I have no problem, but I do see the double standards. I'm like, you won't even allow this, but you're doing this, and you're constantly pointing at that. It's like, it's not ever going to be popular. And that's kind of my point that I feel like is so edgy to say now, whether it comes to Jewish, black, liberal, white, Hispanic, Asian, Christian, Muslim. You have to be self-accountable, and if you lack self-accountability, you're gonna pay for it and blame somebody else eventually. When it comes to Christianity and the fact that it's not growing as fast as Islam or not even Judaism, that's a very small amount, but say Islam's growing much faster than Christianity. I'm not gonna blame Muslims. I'm gonna say, Christians, what happened? What did you do? Where did you go wrong? Like, what's not keeping people in Christianity and Christian nations? Let's self-look at what we're doing. I'm not going to blame the people who are doing it, but that's why I literally don't play the victim. But when it comes to conservatism, they say liberals don't do that, and it's true. Liberals have learned nothing from last election. They're disgraceful, and they're not going to win because they have no good leadership. But then you go to conservatism, and when it comes to homosexuality or Judaism, these are conversations they don't want to have at all. Like, have you ever heard Ben Shapiro self-reflect on some Jewish people in America and what maybe they could do a little bit better to stop the anti-Semitic hate? He's never said that. He's only always blaming others. And the thing is, it's not going to work in the white community, in the black community, in the Jewish community. Someone made a good point to me the other night. Pakistanis come over and certain parts of Africa come over and they dominate tremendously. They don't make excuses. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any resources. They work hard, they break stereotypes, and they make things happen. If you don't do that, if you constantly blame others, what Kanye West is trying to say, and your community gets worse and worse and worse and worse, when the backlash comes, you can't blame everyone else. You have to have some sort of accountability. If America falls, I'm not going to blame Israel. I'm not going to blame Saudi Arabia. I'm not going to blame Great Britain. I'm not going to blame the Democrats. I'm going to blame America. I'm going to blame, I'm not going to blame another religion. I'll blame Christians. It's what did you do to get to this point? It's not all Jewish people's fault. It's not Israel's fault. It's not Saudi Arabia's fault. It's your fault for allowing certain things to happen in liberalism, on college campuses, on political correctness, on free speech, and not doing anything about it. You can't blame other people. That's where I disagree with the dissident right. But however, they keep growing because nobody reflects for some reason. And even on the right wing, it's like you can only go so far and then they'll cut you off completely. And that's fine. And I'm going to answer some questions now. I'm not saying you have to agree with these people. However, if you don't listen to what they're saying and you can't debate them, chances are maybe you're wrong. Like if someone says something to me and I just say you're racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, and I kick them out, it doesn't make me right. It makes me look like I'm wrong. Get out of here. And you could block somebody if they're really annoying or anything, but you get what I'm saying? So it's like the right wing is looking dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber to not only the dissident right, but even to people who work for their organization, even to people who agree with them on everything, on Israel, on economy. There's people who don't want to say it because they don't want to lose their job. And a lot of people, they go to these organizations and they're like, ooh, one day I'm going to be up there. Like they try to, get in by like, I'm not saying sucking D, but you get what I'm saying. Like, oh, please let me in. I've never done that. That's why they've never let me in. They've told me, they're like, dude, it's because you don't like suck up to people. That's why I'm like, I show love, but it's like, I'm not going to chase someone around for 2 years begging for a position I should have had 2 years ago. So it's like, I'm free to say whatever. I'm really free. There's a lot of conservatives today who aren't free to even agree. I know people that agree with Charlie Kirk, but they don't like how he's doing it. They know it's not working. They know there needs to be debate. They know there's a conversation to be had. They know there's valid criticisms, and they're afraid to lose their jobs. Why do you think Michael Knowles at Daily Wire condemned the picture with Nick Fuentes? He's afraid to lose his job at the Daily Wire because he knows debating Nick Fuentes, hosting Nick Fuentes, talking to him, taking a picture with him, attending a debate with him is a blacklist probably at Daily Wire. So it's like, Michael Knowles doesn't want to lose his job. I'm conservative, I'm anti-PC, but I'm so sorry for taking a picture. Please, Ben Shapiro, don't fire me. What are we conserving at that point? You get what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to be mean. I think all these organizations I think Daily Wire does incredible work. I think Turning Point USA has revolutionized conservatism on college campuses. Turning Point is crushing it. Ben Shapiro's crushing it. PragerU has revolutionized conservative education online. PragerU's crushing it. All I'm saying is, don't sell us out. Don't sell out debate. Don't sell out free speech on your path to, business success. We love a lot of what you're doing. We love conservative values in some senses. We love that you're on college campuses promoting conservatism. But at the end of the day, you got to practice what you preach. If you're afraid of if you only debate left-wingers and you're afraid of the right, are you really pro-debate, or are you just pro-stunting on like 18-year-old girls and making like, it's a little weird, that's fine going to college campuses, but if you're like in your late 20s and 30s and you're only going to debate 18-year-olds, but you're afraid of like, conservatives who disagree with you, it's a little weird. It's like, it's not that impressive. Like, yeah, I mean, I could go on college campuses and run circles around liberals, but I just turned 30, so it's not that impressive. Like, I was kind of retarded when I was 18 and 19 too. I'd run circles around myself when I was 19. So it's like, can Ben Shapiro debate me? Can he debate Alex Jones? Can he debate Nick Fuentes? I don't think so. And I think that's why they're so threatened, because I don't think he was calling Alex Jones a conspiracy theorist. Listen, I don't agree with Alex Jones on everything, but I think Alex Jones would crush Ben Shapiro in a debate. I think that's why he only debates liberals and like the intellectual dark web, where they're like, I'm an atheist, but I'm intellectual and I agree with free speech. And they're like, it's a good conversation. Like, can you debate Alex Jones? I don't think so. And this is not mean. This is a challenge. Debate Alex Jones. Debate Nick Fuentes. Debate Louis Farrakhan. Debate Pastor Anderson. Like, I want to see these things. I want to see some crazy, like, that's cool to me. Not, I have to ruin my life now because I took a picture with someone you don't like, but I'm conservative though. It's so lame. It's so lame. It's like, I don't want to get pressured for conversations, pictures, debates, unpopular opinions, criticism, critiques. I'm not even a critic, but it's like, I want to be able to not agree, and I want to be told why without being kicked out. You know, I want to be challenged. I don't want to be banished from eternity. Let me know what you guys are thinking. That's my thoughts on the whole conversation. God bless, you know, TPUSA, Ben Shapiro. God bless all conservatives on the dissident right to the mainstream right. But this battle, this culture war, in a sense, is not going away. It can't be banished, just like the liberals. They think they can blacklist you out of eternity. Liberals think by banishing you from all media that you're going to go away. As a moderate Trump supporter, you're not going anywhere. The same logic applies to the mainstream, more liberal right, to the further, more, you know, Christian right. It's not going to disappear. So you have to confront it. You have to debate it. And it's very, very telling that all the mainstream conservatives are like actively, like Sebastian Gorka, like all they're all in unison, just like they're trying to kick these people off of Twitter. It's very telling about, you know, how pro free speech they are. Someone said Anomaly isn't ready for a debate. I'm ready. Trust me, I'm very, very ready. I don't care, you know, what people think. I fuel off of being underrated. You know, it's like I could just be a music artist. I could just say, hey guys, I'm the hip hop artist who likes Trump. Hey guys, I'm the rapper who likes Trump. But I got 300 million views doing news analysis. A lot of these other people that they cart around, they didn't do that. You know, they're just the artist who kind of capitalized off the Trump support, which I'm not knocking. It's a smart thing to do, especially if you like Trump. Capitalize, you know what I'm saying? Get your name out there. But it's like, I've proven myself and I fuel off it. You don't want to book me? I'll get 300 million views and then I'll go on tour and do a show in front of 6,000 people. They still don't write articles about me. You know, I bring it on. I love being underrated. I love being challenged. It makes me work 30 times harder. You know, I have 100 videos. I have 50 or 40 or 30 videos that have over 1 million views. You know, some people don't even have one, and I still don't get booked. It's like, bring it on. I'll do 1 million. I guess I got to get 10 billion views. Let's go. I'm ready to debate anyone at any time. I would love to debate the mainstream right wing. Who can I not debate? Let's go. And when you have two people that are smart debate, the people win. It's good to be wrong. It's good to be challenged. But if your idea of being challenged is only debating left-wingers, that's not really, you know, that's not the whole deal. I want to see Alex Jones versus Ben Shapiro. Someone said debate Bernie. I'd be down, but he'd probably just scream at me the whole time. I would love to debate Bernie Sanders. Honestly, I think I would be better than a lot of other conservatives. I know why I don't like his health care. You know, I'm very genuine and I'm not lying, so I'm ready for it all. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to cry about it. I got other things to do. That's the beautiful thing about creating my own platform. I don't need to get booked by anybody. I'm making enough revenue just making my own videos and making music. So I'm not like, oh no, I'm afraid to piss off the right wing. I've been available for 2 years. I've blown up some of their biggest stars and helped them get on, and they've booked me for nothing. They've only done weird stuff. So I'm not knocking them. It's still all love, but it's like I have no reason to censor and suppress the truth. It's not like I have any of that going on. Even if I did, I don't care. Like, that's always been me. I always got like suspended from school or detention. Not that that's good, but it's like if I failed away, I went for it. You know, it's like I wouldn't just do what they told me was right, even though I knew it was wrong. I'm all in. You know, it's like I can't suppress myself. Someone said a strong wind could crush Bernie. What don't you like about Bernie's healthcare? This is a good question. I just had a debate